All right, going first, Mr. Lozada, what is your name, political party, and why are you running for president?
All right. My name is Frankie Lozada. I'll keep it brief. I am the first Puerto Rican to ever run for president. I was previously running under the Democratic line before the DNC decided that primary elections just don't matter anymore. As a presidential candidate, I do fight for an America where opportunity and prosperity is inclusive. I believe in empowering our youth through innovative education, revitalizing our economy with sustainable practices, and ensuring that healthcare is a guaranteed right and not a privilege. My focus is dedicated on uniting us as a nation, celebrating our diversity, and fostering a sense of community and purpose. I'm Frankie Lozada, and I am running for president. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hunt, same question. What is your name, political party, and why are you running for president?
My name is William Hunt, and I live in North Pole, Alaska, just so people know. And I'm a registered Democrat, but I'm running as independent because, like Frank, I discovered that the Democrats did not want anyone except for who they want. And the reason why I decided to run for president was because I looked at my great grandson and said, you know, the way I've been voting for the last 40 years is now affecting him. And I want to convince people that we need to vote differently, that we can no longer just vote for Republican or Democrat, and that we need real change. And so my goal is to get the conversation going about real change, to fix Social Security, to fix healthcare, to unite not just the political parties, but to unite the American people. And my goal is this: I want to work for you and your children, your grandchildren, and your great-grandchildren. And if you're on the far right or the far left, I want to work for everyone, not just the party. Thank you.
Thank you. Daví, same question. What is your name, political party, and why are you running for president?
You're here. That's the first step.
Welcome to Daví.com. Greetings to my fellow human. I am Daví, artist, tecton, and avatar of Earth. In 2020, I vowed to ensure the sacred protection, harmony, and natural evolution of humanity and Earth. I'm running to earn your vote in 2024 as President of America and leader of the free world. My areas of focus are rehabilitation and recycling, providing healing-oriented support for those ailing in body, mind, and/or behavior, finding harmony and balance between usage and contribution to Earth, mediator wing of the police, an emergency mediator wing of the police that on demand mediates tough situations and conversations without guns, batons, or slow court dates.
Greetings. Why Daví? Politics, as usual, won't win in 2024. The blue and red have and will continue to dominate the politics as usual archetype. People have to be intrigued in order to take notice and take part. An unexpected choice is necessary for an unexpected result. A joker to out-trump the previously played cards. We have a unique opportunity at a crossroads in our nation to make a breakthrough. A unique opportunity can only be met successfully with unique action. I am Daví. I'm here to present another way of vision called Earth Order. Earth Order is a new choice that offers direct democracy to America, an online voting system that allows us to ongoingly vote for the exact government that we want moving forward. A new choice that provides equal salaries for self-created work or self-chosen work. A new choice where all have access to quality housing through a housing exchange. A new choice that covers all healthcare costs. In the history of the modern world, my presidential campaign is the first to present a real plan for equality and direct democracy. I can do this. I can bring home a win for equality, for democracy, and for America.
Thank you. Ms. Lochocki, same question. What is your name, political party, and why are you running for president? Unmute yourself.
So my name is Susan Buchser-Lochocki, and I am running for president of the United States as a write-in candidate and as an unregistered, unaffiliated candidate. Now, I started running actually for president back in 2020 with the Green Party. After going through all the different parties that we had, I had decided on them because they had peace in their platform. And peace was why I got in it. And then I found out too, it was the 100-year anniversary of women's rights to vote in 2020. So I thought certainly as a woman, I should definitely also participate. But sadly, the Green Party picked a man, and then our country picked a man. So anyway, I moved back to the US from Switzerland, where I lived for 20 years, and I've seen a whole new way of voting that we need here, because during my process of running for president and also running for Congress in 22, I discovered there's a lot of fraud in the system. Our own Secretary of State of West Virginia announced that over a quarter of the West Virginia vote was fraudulent in the 2020 election. And that means 380,000 names were wrong. So we have problems, because if that's in West Virginia, that's in New York, and that's in California, and all over. So I have a lawsuit pending with the Supreme Court to end this thing called registering to vote, because there's no checks and balances on the names, and that's where the fraud and manipulation is. So I have a whole idea of how to organize a new vote, a new voting process. It's at my website, which is susan4usa.com. That's Susan, the number 4, USA.com. Thank you that I can be here. I'm looking forward to this meeting, debate, whatever. Thanks.
Thank you. Welcome everyone to the first totally independent e-debate organized by George Micro. Thank you very much for helping putting this together. Again, my name is Jackie Carpio. I'll be your debate moderator. So let's get right into it. The first topic of questions is going to be on economics. Frankie, the first question, what strategies will you implement to ensure economic growth benefits all Americans?
Well, first and foremost, we have to tackle the fact that we're losing a lot of jobs overseas, and we're also not targeting and putting the necessary restrictions on AI and robotics, which is also taking away from the labor force. So part of how our economy is run is supposed to be off of the taxes that we receive, which is supposed to be 50% or more, coming directly from income tax paid by the actual American taxpayer. So if you're not working and there's no labor force and jobs here, there's no taxes then funding our economy and our government. So number one is bringing back the jobs here. Two, the other one is to, the other way is to actually get people to live above the poverty line, which I can't imagine, how long that we people have been living below that poverty line. It's been okay in this country, and I am not going to allow that to continue anymore. So one of the things that I'm a big proponent of is the universal basic income. I think that is a great way to lift people up, to protect our public sleepers, instead of saying the unhoused or homeless, and finding ways to elevate us up there and counter the fact that those jobs are leaving this country. Number two is bringing those jobs back here will also allow us to export a significant amount more, which that's how we make money as a country, is by exporting more than we're importing, which is not the case, obviously, with all of this transitions out. My guy could go on for days, but good.
All right. Second question, what steps will you take to decrease inflation?
So number one is our spending is out of control, and it comes from the politicians. If you look at every single one of our members of Congress and our senators, majority of them, in fact, all of our senators are multimillionaires who are not prior to getting elected into office. So here you have people who clearly can make successful business and profitable business decisions, but when it comes to our money and our government, that's all of a sudden where that there's a lack. So how is that possible? So clearly, though, there's a lot of corruption within the government itself, which needs to be tackled there. That's number one. To remove that kind of corruption by putting in term limits, there's no foreign influences in our government. Tackling inflation too, same thing, is making things affordable by making things here and by exporting a lot more. We create more things here, more resources here in this country. That's less of tariffs we have to pay coming in, and it brings our costs down, allows it to be leveled out.
And next question. What is your approach to tax reform and how will it impact different income groups?
So we need to close a lot of the loopholes. Too many corporations and elites are putting their money in offshore accounts to evade. One of them being Law 22 in Puerto Rico, which allows people to run their business tax-free with the intention to create more jobs in Puerto Rico, and it rarely ever happens that way. So here you have people like Logan Paul, or whichever Paul brother lives there, taking advantage of not paying taxes on all these millions and millions of dollars, profiting all of it and not giving back into the economy. So those tax loopholes need to be cut down. We need to also increase the taxes. If you make more, you should at least, at a very minimum, I understand the trickle-down effect. We've realized that it's not working. If you're not going to pay your employees more, you at least got to pay your fair share to be here. There's no reason why we should have people in this country who are making below the poverty line paying more taxes than some previous presidents.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Hunt, same questions. What strategies will you implement to ensure economic growth benefits all Americans?
All right, can I ask you a question first?
Yes.
Okay, so if I want to ask him a question, how would I do that without rudely interrupting him? Or do I just have to say something?
We can do that now. We'll start that now.
Okay, no, I just want to know because I would like to have said things like the universal wages or income, but I'm gonna move on because I want to focus on what we're doing. But I'm just kind of curious for future. This is literally my first debate.
You know what? Then we can open the rebuttals up after the questions are asked.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. You want to ask me my question?
Yeah. So what strategies will you implement to ensure economic growth benefits all Americans?
So what I would do is I would literally start with the children, and I would create a program where we get children to have their carts along the side of the roads or in the parking lot selling lemonades, and teach them how to be entrepreneurs so that when they get older, they create their own business. And then I would also create a co-op so that we can encourage mom and pops get back to having their own operation. And the co-op would be designed so that they can compete against the large corporations because they get good prices because of the quality they order. So if we do mom and pop operations and have a co-op, the mom and pop can order from the co-op. All of them can order from one spot. They can then order for the mass quality and get a good price, and then pass a small percentage for profit to the mom and pop operation. Then, the other thing you got to look at when it comes to my plan for everyone to benefit is you got to look at everything I stand for, like health care, Social Security, the whole 9 yards.
All right. And Mr. Hunt, what steps will you take to decrease inflation?
So to decrease inflation, I think one of the primary things would be increasing supply. So if we start growing like more food, then we can have more abundant supply because the more there is, the cheaper it comes down. So that's one thing I want to do is start finding ways to increase farm production. Chickens, like the same thing. So, but also I think in order to reduce reduction, we got to reduce our spending. I mean, inflation, we got to reduce it. There's no doubt about it. So, and I would do that by actually, I think if we increased our productions and our supply, it would help reduce that inflation and stimulate the economy.
Right.
So I don't know where my time's up. So I was kind of looking for heads. Would you shake heads or something?
And then, Mr. Hunt, what is your approach to tax reform and how will it impact different income groups?
So what I want to do in tax reform is the huge tax cuts they gave the rich, the 1% people. This year we get $62,000 savings. Even the top 0.01%, you get $162,000 roughly in tax cuts. I want to take those tax cuts and move it down to the working families so that they can afford daycare, they can afford get their children in preschool. But also I think that the rich people needs to pay more in taxes. There's absolutely no doubt about that. So we do need to close the loopholes.
All right. Opening up for rebuttals. Does anybody have anything? Nope. Okay. All right, Daví, same questions. What strategies will you implement to ensure economic growth benefits all Americans? Unmute yourself.
Okay. So as discussed in the previous video, I'm presenting something called Earth Order America. So Newton's third law says everything has an equal and opposite force. We've been living and experiencing the consequences of a capitalism, a system that does not benefit because it's based on artificial rules and artificial folks who are making money as shareholders of the Federal Reserve, who we don't know. So we're all working and busy in this great nation to benefit these collective of people that we don't even know. The Daví for President 2024 campaign is the force of the natural realm. While they base their future on fear and greed, we can base our future in love and growth. A full, holistic, comprehensive plan. As soon as any American signs up to Earth Order, you will receive a $5,000 signing bonus to allow you the time to choose your next steps. Whether you will work in a self-created or self-chosen Earth Order business. Debt-free with full medical coverage. That means all of your debts will be forgiven because of the actual money that is available to you as American citizens, but we have agreed that a government is able to withhold that wealth.
Okay. And then, sorry, your minute was up.
Okay. Nobody else's minute is up, but mine is. Okay.
Well, I was letting people go like 10 seconds over, but we're getting along with you.
Okay.
What steps, Daví, will you take to decrease inflation?
So let me explain a bit how Earth Order works. So in Earth Order, I am actually, we're creating essentially a new voluntary middle class whose incentive is no longer just making money in a pointless way, but rather the incentive is to increase the quality of life for Americans. So we have an opportunity to choose what we believe is important for us and then gradually allow those cultural and social and natural needs to specify how the community operates. The pre-existing businesses and new business concepts are welcome for application. Criteria to join will include agreement to business code, standards addressing things as employee treatment, environmental impact, and recycling. And once approved, each person who suggests a new Earth Order business will be provided slots for employment. So each person that they are employing will be directly paid by the government. And each contributor business will offer a percentage of whatever they believe is correct for their profits each season. So,
okay. And what steps will you approach, Daví, for tax reform, and how will it impact different income groups?
So taxes are a choice. We forget or don't notice, where does the tax money go? Where does the IRS actually move their money after they've received it from the American people? Without questioning these things, we're missing the underlying debts that we as Americans are paying without any type of recompense. And so what Earth Order does is it allows each American to opt out of capitalism, to be part of this network that is based on incentive for human living increase, rather than just increasing the profits of who makes the money from the IRS.
Yes. Opening up to rebuttals. Does anybody have anything to say? Mr. Hunt, your mic is muted. Okay. All right.
All right. So he talks about the government paying this, but where does the government get their money? Because the government has no money unless it collects it from the people. So I'm really curious about how he expects to pay for this through the government.
So how do we pay for the Ukraine war? How do we pay for the war in Israel? These are all great questions. I'm just planning to use the money that we have for the people of this nation.
That's good point. All right. Moving on to the next topic. It's going to be environment. Mr. Lozada, first question. What specific policies and initiatives will you implement to address
I'm sorry,
climate?
you didn't ask me.
Oh, Susan, I'm so
question.
sorry. Susan, apologies. What strategies will you implement to ensure economic growth benefits all Americans?
Well, first off, I want to say that everybody who went before me had some very good ideas. The problem I find is that some people, if you give them money, they're not going to produce anything. And maybe that's okay for a while, but if we have a whole bunch of people just collecting money and not producing and not being part of society, you know, we got a problem, I think. You know, then we don't have roads anymore. Then we don't have food being distributed, you know. So I think, you know, I often at the beginning, I didn't like capitalism, actually, when I first started thinking about running for politics and stuff like that. But I've slowly realized that certain people need an incentive to get up and go, you know. And if you give everybody everything, we're going to have people not doing anything. And it's true because I've seen it already as it is. You know, people are already getting things from our government and they're happily living in poverty in some places. You know, I can't imagine it either, but they are. I do think our standard is very low and we need to raise it up. So that's my goal, but I have different incentives that I want to bring to do that.
All right, that's for me. All right. And Susan, what steps will you take to decrease inflation?
Well, I think we got to take the middleman out, the traveling, you know, bringing products from one place to the other. So we need to shop locally. We need to produce locally. We don't need the big farms out in the Midwest anymore. What we need are communities. We need more people. And so, you know, we need people producing too. And again, that's where the incentive comes in. So if you do a little work, you get something for it. So we need, you know, like somebody said something about co-op, like a farming co-op or so. Every town should have one. And let's have the kids work on it, the 12-year-olds, so they learn how to grow vegetables and stuff. And plus the, you know, maybe the old timers, you know, the senior citizens can also be helping to teach the kids. And we can have, you know, groceries right at our hometown. So we don't need to bring things from California all the way to New York or vice versa. So I think when we take out the middleman, the cost of gas, that will help a great deal. And there's a way to turn cars, gas cars into hybrids, which would save a lot of money for everyone, for products, for people, everything.
And Susan, what is your approach to tax reform and how will it impact different income groups?
Well, I think anyone who makes under $100,000 in this country currently should not pay any federal tax whatsoever. No federal tax. What we should do too is increase the top 5% of our country. They should pay at least 40% on their money. And we need to put a wealth tax on people who have money just in the bank sitting there. Because, you know, it's nice when we all get money, but then when you have money, you don't have to pay, you don't have to give yourself an income. So then you don't pay income tax if you're wealthy enough. And so these people are getting away with having all this money, using money and not paying income tax. So those people need a wealth tax who have money in the bank who are not receiving an income. And then we'll have more money. And the problem is the people on the lower scale on under $100,000 a year who are working, they're paying, the percentage to their money is much higher. It's, because they also have to pay tax on everything else, on state and local taxes, gas taxes, all sorts of things. So that would be my tax solution.
All right. Opening it up for rebuttals. Does anybody have anything they want to say? Mr. Hunt, I see your mouth moving, but your mic is muted.
Thank you for saying it. I keep forgetting that I get muted. So I'm a single person. I make almost 100,000 a year. And so you don't think I should pay taxes, but yet I have a daughter with 3 children that makes less than $100,000 and they don't pay taxes. Because to me,
Yeah.
I think I would rather pay taxes to help them.
Well, of course you can make a donation if you want. The government won't say no if you want to donate $500 a year to the government. Absolutely, you can do that. But we're not going to make it an obligation. If you're making under 100,000, you should not have to pay tax. If you make over 100, then you will. And everything is it has levels on how much money you earn income wise. And then, like I said, so currently our highest income rate is 37%. I would like to move that to 40. And then, like I said, the top 5% needs to definitely pay that higher rate. And then also we need a wealth tax on people who have, I don't know, I need to sit down with the people and figure out how much a wealth tax should be.
Ms. Lozada, do you want to say something?
Oh, I just want to point out, because I love, it's all fine and dandy to donate your taxes and to do a good Samaritan thing. And thank you so much for giving us out of the goodness of your heart. But what both of you failed to mention with all of your plans is, if you're going to do that, you forget how much our government costs. And none of you talked about minimizing our government control, minimizing those agencies where that money is necessary to pay those government officials and the government jobs. So without that tax revenue and relying on the goodness of people's hearts, I don't see how you're going to have enough to pull forward to that.
Taxing the top 5% should cover that. They have a lot of loopholes too. So no, paying an extra 3% on the top money, on billions of dollars, we'll have enough money.
Yeah, but
and Daví, did you want to?
And a wealth tax too.
I saw your hand raised, Daví.
Oh, great. Just want to, Susan wasn't specific about who she was talking about in terms of just giving out money. So I just want to separate Earth Order from Universal Basic Income if there's a confusion. Earth Order is a system that offers equal salaries for self-chosen or self-created work, which means that the people are deciding how they are productive. They're not just sitting around receiving money. And I'm not sure if that was directed towards me or not, but I just want to make sure that's clear. Secondly, the child labor laws protect 12-year-olds from working for a reason, so that they can grow up and be adults. And I think that, us not being, your comment about 12-year-olds working on farms, I think is a bit reductionary in terms of what children need in order to have a life where they can actually choose what is important to them. And then finally, Lozada's reduced conversation about reducing government, but he's a representative of the Democratic Party, which is a corporation that has corporate goals that you would need to get approval to talk about reducing. So I don't understand how you could have that as a point of your campaign if you're a representative of a corporation.
How am I a representative of a corporation if I ran against them and they're incumbent? It makes no sense.
Are you a Democrat or not?
I'm registered because it was the most logical thing to do to get ballot access and actually run for president. Absolutely.
Okay, so you're a representative.
Because running as a Republican was ridiculously, stupidly expensive.
Oh, okay. So you went the easy way, right? And so
no, I went the most logical way to get my platform and voice across.
Your party has
I'm sorry, how many votes did you get nationwide?
Delegates than you, and I'm in a smaller party.
Oh, you have more delegates. How do you have delegates being in the party? Oh, the Green Party, where Jill Stein's already the Gotcha. Jill Stein's already the nominee.
Okay, that's not true because the nomination process has not even ended. It's August 4th
It's
today.
it's in 2 weeks,
Presidential nominating convention is
and Jill Stein has enough delegates to win the nomination.
announcements.
So had you had enough delegates, you would have been featured on our debate that we had in Vegas. And last I checked, Jill Stein was on that stage, not you. So
The
calm
last
yourself.
Jill Stein didn't win the free and equal debate the last time. She got third place, and somehow she ended up on the next debate stage. So I don't know why you're advocating
on the voting system, but she was on the stage. Okay.
All right,
well.
guys, we're gonna
Okay,
bring it
we're
back.
not the Green Party, so yeah.
All right, let's bring it back to this this debate for time's sake, okay?
Gotcha.
Okay. All right, next topic is going to be environment. Mr. Lozada, what specific policies and initiatives will you implement to address climate change?
So for one, we need better alternatives and more efficient options, because what's happening is our demand to stop climate change and try to reverse its impact is surpassing the abilities we're making to create those resources. And so I am a proponent of nuclear energy in the sense that it is the most sustainable, not renewable as of yet, because renewable is ridiculously expensive because there's a lack of competition in that field. But scientifically proven nuclear energy is the safest and most efficient way to create energy, more so than wind turbines. They take up less space, more so than solar. And what's happening is we're creating this push for sustainable and green resources, which is great, but they're not producing enough energy, and we're going to fall backwards on it. And then the coal and oil industry is just going to sit there and laugh in our faces. So nuclear energy is the way to go. I think France already is ahead of the game. They're fueling or sourcing 25%, I believe, of their power from nuclear energy. So that's one of the biggest ones going forward from there. I also, we have some of the biggest oil reserves. I'm not a fan of people drilling on federal lands. I'm a big fan of condensing that. But I don't care if you drill on private lands. If you want to negotiate and grow that business, great. We should be exporting more than we're importing, especially when we have some of the largest oil reserves.
Okay. And then what steps will you take to protect wildlife and natural habitats?
The same thing, protecting federal land. We shouldn't have people drilling and demolishing it. It's federal land for a reason. We should be using it for good purposes. I'm a big fan of protecting our wildlife, protecting our food, protecting our farmers, and making sure that what we consume and everything that our animals and every livestock that lives on this same country and continent that we have, in fact, the entire world, have an abundance of what they need to survive, and they're not threatened.
All right. And what will you do to ensure clean air and water for all communities?
As I mentioned, finding ways to be more sustainable, reducing that carbon footprint and knocking it down. I don't think we can call America the greatest country in the world when people are worried of whether or not their water is even remotely clean. Like the fact that Flint was even an issue blows my mind. I think that is a right, and at least at the bare basic fundamental right to at least clean water and fresh air.
Okay. Mr. Hunt, what specific policies and initiatives will you implement to address climate change? And don't forget to unmute yourself.
I am. But I want to ask him a question. But my question just left my mind, so I want to answer your question.
We'll wait for the rebuttals at the end when Susan gets her time.
Oh, okay. All right. So what was the question?
What specific policies and initiatives will you implement to address climate change?
So, right now we explore every possibility. They're exploring nuclear, fossil fuel, solar, hydro, the whole 9 yards. But one thing I like to talk about is that I watch a lot of TikTok and try to get ideas, and like the perpetual motion. And I think that we could actually set up a perpetual motion machine to turn a generator to create electricity, which don't matter if the sun's shining or the wind blowing or what, because if it's perpetual motion, it will continue to turn. A lot of people tells me that's impossible to do, but I said to them, can you talk on your wrist to people now? They said yes. I said, well, when I was a kid, The only person who did that was Dick Tracy. So nothing is impossible. You are only limited by what you think is impossible. So I would like to explore these strange, more different ideas to create energy, to clean up the environment. But also one thing I would, go ahead.
And what steps will you take to protect wildlife and natural habitats?
So with wildlife and natural habitat, I think really we need to start figuring out a way to clean up the rivers and cleaning out the plastic from the rivers and the oceans. If it came to like the grasshoppers, they're called a different thing, locusts, then I think we should go in and try to destroy those locusts so that they don't destroy our natural habitat or our food sources. And we need to destroy that nest versus mass spraying. And then I also would like to see that we start deforesting things so that when we have wildfires, we can actually prevent it more than just letting it grow till we have massive fires.
And then what will you do to ensure clean air and water for all communities?
Well, considering I live in the North Pole and we have lousy water here, I have well water and it's red because of the iron. I think that we have to figure out a way to pay for it, to implement putting a water system in. But the problem is, how will we get the water to where we need to go? So one thing I would like to see is that we put pipelines in so that if on the East Coast they have a massive flooding, we can transfer that water underground to a place that needs water, and then it can get filtered over there. Because if they don't have the water, you can't give them clean water. So I would like to see that one way developing our infrastructure is that water line system where it can go both ways, pump east or pump west. But I think it will also take a huge amount of taxes that we'll have to figure out how to pay for it.
All right. Daví, same questions. What specific policies and initiatives will you implement to address climate change?
So when we say climate change, aren't we glad that we're not in the ice age anymore? We have to expand and be more specific about what we're talking about. Okay, so our goal is not to inhibit the natural processes of Earth. That is too much, and that is the consequence of what we have in terms of our the chemtrails currently occurring. These things are causing a lot of the issues that we're experiencing in our soils and in our waterways. And so we have to be cognizant of that and begin to address that. Secondly, when it comes to energy, everybody knows Nikola Tesla invented free energy in the 40s. And so those patents are held by our government. And we can actually have a president such as Daví who will allow those patents to become public, and so that we can have a new energy source that doesn't require all this destroying and drilling and all this hard labor where people are dying of lung cancer. There's just a better way to operate available. Go ahead.
And what steps will you take to protect wildlife and natural habitats?
So first off, creating a sewage to compost pipeline. So right now, most of our sewage from our cities go into basically a big collection pot, and then they go to a landfill. That is just an inefficient and lazy way of dealing with that which could be the very source of regenerating forests in the tornado belt so that they have less tornadoes. Making sure that we are actually moving in the abilities of our current technology, which allow plastics to be melted down into not only oil, but also other plastics. And so it's just a matter of becoming efficient with what we actually have and know.
And what will you do to ensure clean air and water for all communities?
So first off, like I said, the chemtrails got to go because that's causing a lot of issues. But secondly, the waterways are really due to the pollution of the waterways is due to a lack of government oversight in terms of the different production plants that are pouring their waste into the natural waterways. And we have to begin to be very stringent on those regulations so that we don't deal with, in not even 100 years, but even 20 years, not having the correct wildlife. And also just, we tend to not think about just the regular evolution of our species, of our nation.
Very well, thank you. Susan, same questions. What specific policies and initiatives will you implement to address climate change?
So I'm not sure climate change is really what we think it is. We have a super volcano in Yosemite National Park, and I think the earth is heating up, not really the air. So I think we got big problems there. We also somehow have learned how to make rain. And so in Saudi Arabia, they've been making it rain over there. And then we've been also using these same rain machines, airplanes, making it rain in certain places in the US. And they tried to cool down Yosemite back in 2020, I think, when there was flooding over there. And they tried to slow us down. I think that that's what this COVID thing was, to slow us down, to get us to stop and stop heating the planet so that we can see what the real problem was. Now, I don't know what came out of the study of the 2020 COVID-19 thing going on, but I think it's not really as much man-made as we think. I do think hybrid cars would deal with a lot of pollution and use energy in a better way, because as you drive, you create energy. But we do have bad standards on cars and emissions in the United States.
Okay.
And so if we just fix our emissions, that would help also a great deal.
All right. And what steps will you take to protect wildlife and natural habitats?
Well, I think, our biggest problem is probably the oceans right now. They are seemingly quite polluted. So we need to learn we need to move back to maybe a more glass-centered reality where we don't use as much plastic. And people have to respect nature and put stuff in the garbage can. I know wind comes and sometimes things blow away. So maybe, I don't know, we might have to go back to really using plates and dishes and not all this plastic and styrofoam.
And what will you do to ensure clean air and water for all communities?
Well, clean air, we need to move to solar panels, I think, and we can put them on rooftops. We can also put them, I saw while I'm traveling, I'm in Tennessee right now, and I saw in the parking lot here, they had them on top of the parking lot, creating shade underneath. So they were collecting energy, and then the cars parking underneath were in shade. So when the driver goes to drive away, they don't have a hot car. They could actually maybe even leave their dog in there for a brief minute, while they had to run in and do something quickly. So it's a win-win for everybody. So we need to get rid of these large parking lots that we have too. They're just heat generators. So if we can cover those either with trees or solar panels and create shade, that would help a great deal, and it would give us energy. So that's one thing. Air quality, again, I think I said emissions. We need to fix our cars because we got a lot of people driving around with old timers. So maybe we need to just have a community service where people go in and they get their car tested, and then the community helps, especially the poor, to fix their vehicles so that they're not causing so much pollution.
All right, opening up for rebuttals. Does anybody want to jump in? Oh, okay. All right, moving on to the next topic, social issues. Going first, Mr. Lozada, what measures will you take to address racial and gender inequality?
First and foremost, I think there is a disconnect in this country of understanding inclusivity and race as well. So one of the big things is to educate our communities and allow them to be more inclusive with that education for it. We shouldn't be telling people how to educate or what the curriculum is for their representation, if that makes sense. So our education has to be more inclusive in that sense, where we're not just focusing on some certain negative aspects of there. Instead, for example, if we're talking about slavery in that sense, slavery, yes, it's an important part of our history, but we're also taking away from the fact that a lot of the Africans that came over were educators and scholars and inventors, and we're taking that history away from them and not making them acknowledge that they are more qualified than just being considered, hey, this is what you came from. And I have a problem with that. As far as gender too, like I honestly think people have way too much time on their hands. Like I legit did an entire presidential campaign. I barely saw my family this year by traveling from different state to state to actually go and campaign and meet folks. And I'm very, very happy with the results I did. But at the same time, I'm like, how much time do you have to be that involved in what other folks do? You know, enjoy, embrace everybody, and just promote and lead with that kind of endeavors. What time's up, Carly?
And what is your stance on abortion, and how would you address it as a president?
So that topic is I'm obviously pro-choice, 100%. However, you know, I love the fact when everybody argues, all they talk about is taking away rights, and what they're neglecting is the actual broken foster system and the overcrowded orphanages. So when you have people who are already, nobody sits there high fives each other and goes for an abortion. You know, it is a big process and it's a big decision to make. And you need to be able to have them feel comfortable with some of the alternatives if you don't want that to be the process. So how am I supposed to be comfortable with putting my child and giving them up with those systems that are broken and creating a perpetual cycle of crime and people who are sitting there and just, yeah. So my plan focuses on funding the alternatives, getting kids out of those systems, clearing up, educating our communities, allowing for free contraceptives, allowing for education, and finding ways to bridge those gaps so that we have faith in and they make the most informed and educated choice that they can.
And what is your position on LGBTQ plus rights, and how would you address this issue as president?
So their rights should never be in question. The fact that they have to sit there and gain rights and then lose rights is just disgusting. Like I said, people have too much time on their hands. I do not know what people do behind closed doors, nor do I care. I am here to treat you as a human being, and that's it. You know, and I think that we need to codify some of their rights so that they are guaranteed the same protections as anybody as you and I.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Hunt, same questions. What measures will you take to address racial and gender inequality?
So I think the biggest thing we need to do is we need to have a public discussion where we learn to respect each other's choices. And so we're not fighting about it, but we're more unite. I may not agree with all the genders, but I still respect them because they are human beings and I would still support them. It's like transgender bathrooms. They fought over years for it. When the simple solution would have simply been create a third bathroom that for if you want to be whoever wants to go in there. Because I think we need to respect the rights of the women and the men, but also theirs. So I would want to make sure that we implement anytime something comes up, rather than discuss it for 5 years, let's solve the problem now and unite, keep us united and moving forward. And when it comes to racial, I haven't quite figured that one out because I know there's a huge problem with it and it goes both ways. And I think really we just need to sit down and talk about it. And so the racial, I'm not sure about yet.
Right. And what is your stance on abortion, and how would you address it as president?
So even though I am a Democrat, I am actually pro-life. I used to be pro-choice, but after my ex-wife and I had an abortion, it has literally haunted me, and I have thought about that child for 37 years, wondering what he or she would be like. So because of that, as president, I would still advocate that parents should have the right to make the decision on their unborn child, even though I may not agree with it. I just don't want them to suffer the same thing as I do. And I want them to understand that if they make that decision, what could be the consequences.
Okay. And what is your position on LGBTQ plus rights, and how would you address this issue as president?
Well, first, I think it doesn't matter who you are, you're a human being, and every human being deserves the same rights. So I have never figured out why people wants to hurt another group of people. So I think I would push legislation that would make sure that people are not discriminated against even more, no matter what gender or what they believe, because it's really about uniting America and understanding that, everybody's different and we have to accept them for who they are.
Thank you. Daví, same questions. What measures will you take to address racial and gender inequality?
As president, my focus is on equality. If there's some discrepancies left after we've reached equality, then let's discuss them on the foundation of equality being present in a way that we have all agreed to. In terms of gender, I do think that there is a discrepancy for the public women or female designated bathrooms. We must publicly support the mother, the bearer of all human life. The female or the mother requires specific support in the great responsibility of the bearer of life within the human species. If the female body is a portal through which new humans may be born, that needs to be supported with the maintenance of the female body's work. By executive order, all public female designated restroom facilities will offer free menstrual pads. These pads will be produced with non-organic, non-intrusive chemicals with brands of varieties voted on by the women of America. Providing public maternity familial support starts with our society and our government valuing the natural work and the natural needs of the female body.
And what is your stance on abortion, and how would you address it as president?
My stance on humanity is that we are free to choose. So that does not, I do not discriminate that based on gender. And I think that there is some type of casualty, I think we have in language where we are somehow just naturally allowing ourselves to discuss the abilities of choice for women. That's not true in my understanding. If you are human and you have free choice, then you have free choice, and that is it.
Okay. And what is your position on LGBTQ plus rights, and how would you address this issue as president?
Sexuality is not a presidential concern, because that would require the president to have insight to every single person's sexuality, which is actually a noun, and nobody's ever dead in their sexuality. It's always growing, it's always evolving. So there's a lot of things in language going on around what we call sexuality, or that needs to be handled in itself. But ultimately, my work is to make sure all humans have equal rights and equal access to a fair chance at life. And so that is my focus. And if there are specific specialties that need to be addressed after we reach that, then let's do it.
Thank you. Susan, what measures will you take to address racial and gender inequality?
Well, as far as gender goes, we've had this women's liberation movement going on and everything, and women have achieved great things, but we forgot about the mother. So it's time to make motherhood a career. It should be a paid job by the government, because mothers are creating new citizens, and our new citizens, they don't have money, so they can't pay their mothers, right? But the government can. So that's step number one, is making motherhood a career. There'll be training and support, a community center in every town where you can get together with also the other mothers and have events together and whatnot. But there's also going to be, of course, healthcare and just all the pension, just everything that a normal job comes with, plus a lot of education and support of education throughout your raising of your child. The other thing is a lot of our inequality is actually religious based. It's not so much black and white anymore. It's I'm a Christian from a follower of Roman Christianity, or I'm a follower of Eastern Orthodox Christianity, or a Muslim. So a lot of the prejudice is less about color and more about religion.
And what is your stance on abortion, and how would you address it as president?
Well, I'm going to ask you, what abortion are you talking about?
Me?
Yes. What, because abortion means many things to many people. So what exact abortion are you talking about?
I am
Are you talking
pregnant.
about the pill? Or are you talking about are you talking about the operation? Or are you talking about terminating a pregnancy?
All of the above.
Okay. So, and this is the problem, because we're talking about three different things inside one word. And this is the biggest problem we have. Because I've talked to many different people for the past 4 years, and they all have a different attachment to this word, and they're putting different things into it. So sometimes condoms break. So you're trying not to get pregnant, but the product fails. So what do? You go to your doctor, you get the pill, you take it, and then you don't have to worry about terminating a pregnancy that's late or anything, because you know what happened. You do what is needed to be done. If you're not wanting to be pregnant, why should somebody force you to be pregnant? That's a Christian attitude. And again, that's religious intolerance. We have problems with that in our country. It's huge. But terminating a pregnancy should be always available to a woman at any time. The operation called abortion should be available to a woman at any time, because sometimes there's cancer that grows inside the uterus, sometimes there are warts, sometimes there are other things that need to come out. So they have to perform that abortion operation. And it even starts with girls all the way up to old ladies. So right. Come on now. I am pro-abortion in all the sense.
All right. What is your position on LGBTQ plus rights, and how would you address this issue as president?
Well, I'm not into people being prejudiced or forcing their religion on others. And a lot of the LGBT rights are exactly about Christian nationals forcing their religion on everyone else. And it's time to stop that. We are a non-religious country. It says so in the First Amendment in our Constitution. And we need to get the word God out of all of our documents, including our Pledge of Allegiance. And apparently all of our militaries, everybody who signs up to do military duty, they have to say God when they promise to defend our country. This is shocking for me, because we are a godless country. That's what our document says. But nobody's following the Constitution. And this is a huge problem. I am here to defend it, protect it, and that's what you promise also as president. We've had how many presidents who have been pushing their religion on everybody? It's enough already. We have freedom of expression. Freedom of love is expression. That's how I stand.
Thank you. All right, opening up for rebuttals. Lozada, I see your hand is up.
I mean, not a rebuttal. I just wanted to add on my own statements to one of the points that I love to make as someone like me who's been a very, very big advocate for changing the carceral system and fighting against wrongful incarcerations and keeping families together. We have overcrowded prisons for several reasons. But when you make something illegal, just because something is a law, does not mean that it's not going to happen. And that's what people do not understand. It doesn't deter people. So when you make even abortion illegal, they're still going to get done. And now you're putting more people at risk. There's unsafe circumstances. There's more things to actually thinking about. And it's like, understand that even if you're a religious portion of it, at the same time, it's not your life. Allow people to make that journey and continue on themselves. It is not an easy decision, and I feel for everybody who has to make that decision and go through it. But yeah, just because you make something illegal does not mean it's not going to get done.
I want to say one more thing too quickly. So the abortion, so to terminate a pregnancy, is if a woman is pregnant, that's her body. She has all the rights to her body. No state, actually, according to the 14th Amendment, no state can make a law or enforce a law that restricts a U.S. citizen's rights. And one of our rights is to our body. So a woman can get a termination of a pregnancy at any time during her pregnancy. Absolutely. Today we have modern technology too. What I might suggest to people who might be further along in a pregnancy, if it's not a fetus, embryos can be frozen. So if you accidentally get pregnant, you might want to just freeze that embryo. And apparently to take out an embryo from a body, it's like pulling away or opening up an orange, to peeling away the skin from the orange and then having the orange. So I don't know what they're talking about using these medical procedures. I don't think, it doesn't sound to me like the old-fashioned way of terminating a pregnancy by the act of abortion is a terrible thing, but now they're using tools, and so maybe they're killing women accidentally or on purpose, perhaps. But this is a dangerous thing. But anyways, women they have rights to their bodies. We cannot ban abortion in any state. Any state that's banning abortion is unconstitutional, and I will be suing.
Anybody have any rebuttal to that? No?
I have a couple of things I would like to talk about. First, I hear a lot of people say the word free, but I don't think they understand there is nothing free. If they put pads in the bathroom, people are paying for that because all calculate in the price of business. So they should really use a different words besides free. Free healthcare is not a thing. There's nothing free. Someone is paying for it. And the other thing is that our country, while it may be godless right now, we were actually founded on Christian principles. And that's so taking God out of our country is not something that was designed by our Constitution. Our Constitution is actually designed to keep it separated, not to take it away.
Mr. Lozada?
I want to respond to that because it's not to take it away from the individual. Everybody can believe and worship however they want. Absolutely. It's our country was based on the people who developed our country were actually Jewish, of Jewish descent. So they came from Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. Slaves were Islamic. So we definitely brought that in, but they specifically put into our Constitution to keep everything separate, and we are not supposed to have God in our government. They did it on purpose so that we don't get into wars, which we have been doing for the last 100 years. Prior to World War I, we were a neutral country. And it's only after we started getting into this Zionist movement that suddenly we're in every war, everywhere, trying to stop everybody who doesn't believe in Jesus Christ. And this is not acceptable. I don't believe in Jesus Christ, and I don't want my government to believe in Jesus Christ either.
Right. For time's sake, Lozada, you wanted to say something? No.
They got it covered.
Okay. All right. Moving on. Targeted questions, Mr. Lozada. Would you give Washington, D.C. Puerto Rico statehood? In Puerto Rico statehood?
That is not a decision for me to make. That is for the people who live on the island. And even as a Puerto Rican, I do not live on the island full time, and therefore I cannot make that decision for them. I am against the occupation for sure. However, my job as president is to make sure that all Americans receive that equal economic prosperity that should be promised to all. And so my job would be to return the status of Puerto Rico economically and fiscally back to where it was prior to when we received it, and then allow them to be in good hands to make that informed decision for themselves. But what I would say, instead of allowing and forcing a decision on them, is I should give them the opportunity and the right to vote, because it doesn't make any sense that there's 4.5 million Americans, American-born citizens in Puerto Rico, all of the territories, and in Washington, D.C., that cannot vote even though they pay taxes. And we founded this country on no taxation without representation, or no representation or whatever. So there's no reason why anybody who is a born American should not have a right to vote.
Good point. All right, Mr. Hunt, would you classify yourself as left-leaning, right-leaning, or centrist?
Actually, I'm probably more in the centrist, but actually my political beliefs are on the right and on the left. So, I mean, if you ask my Democratic friends, they'll tell you I'm a Republican. But if you ask my Republican friends, they'll tell you I'm a Democrat. So I think that really puts me in the center of things. And that's one reason why I really want to work for all Americans, because of my beliefs that they're all humans, and I want to help everyone to succeed in life here in America.
Thank you. And Daví, what would you consider to be the most important thing you learned since you've started running for president?
Oh, lovely question. I think the importance of being committed. You know, I've had I've been running in a political party that has essentially rigged the election, didn't allow any other presidential candidate on major states such as Maine and California's ballot. And so what we're facing now is, you know, and I think my campaign in particular is an example of this, where we are dealing with a democracy crisis in America, where none of the parties that have presidential ballot access are actually running a fair democratic process. And somebody has to be able to not only testify to it, but offer another alternative. So we're offering another alternative called the Human First America Coalition, where there's going to be one ballot for all presidential candidates. I encourage everybody to visit Daví.com/DAHG to find out more about it. But shout out to the New Era Party, because we are here ensuring that you understand that there is a great opportunity available, and your coalition and your endorsement would make a difference.
Yeah. And Susan, what is your stance on voter registration?
Well, I think I already said something about that, but registering to vote is unconstitutional. It says so right in the 14th Amendment. No state has the right to make or enforce laws that restrict our rights, and one of our rights is to vote. It's not the right to register to vote to have our vote counted, but as a citizen, it's a right to vote, and that vote gets counted. So right now, I'm not registered. If I go to West Virginia and I try to vote, I have to register first, then I have to vote. And then maybe in 2 weeks, they'll get back to me and tell me if my vote got counted or not. That's what we're talking about, folks. And every single state has this set up in their state. There's one, North Dakota has something different. They recently changed, but it's very similar. So all these ways have to go. We need a new system, something with checks and balances. I suggest we use the Social Security list, because that also needs checks and balances on there, because a lot of fake names on there, stolen names of dead people and everything. So it would be a checks and balance on everything. So we don't need a new list. We need to use what's already in existence.
Thank you. All right, opening up for closing statements. Mr. Lozada, you're first. Why do you believe you are the best candidate to be president?
I overcame a lot of adversity. I can relate to a lot of folks here, and I think one of the most important things that the American people should realize too, especially with the government that we have, is that it's important to vote for people who are also making laws that are going to impact their lives. Because right now we have a whole millions and millions of Americans that are begging and pleading for these elected officials who cannot relate in any which way. And I'm a big proponent of, you cannot fix what you don't understand. So the reason being is because I've been through a lot of that. I've overcame it. I'm I hate talking good about myself in that sense. You know, I'm a very humble person, but we overcame a lot, and I'm very blessed as a person. And I'd like to share that and grow with the people that I represent and show them that there is a way forward and that we're not stuck in this path.
Thank you. Mr. Hunt, why do you believe you are the best candidate to be president?
So I think I'm the best candidate because I want to use a common sense approach, and I want to work for all Americans and not just one group. Like I said, my focus is the things I want to do will not help me and may not help people right under my age. But what I'm looking at is what can we do to give a future for your children, your grandchildren, and your great grandchildren. And unless you get candidates that thinks like that, they will only look for 4 years or 8 years, and then they'll move on. So I think we need someone who has the vision to look forward for 40 years and say, this is what we need to do because this is how it will affect your great grandchildren.
Thank you. Daví, why do you believe that you are the best candidate to be president?
Well, quite simply, I'm not here to play games with you. I'm here to ensure that we are fully playing in this game we call American Human Living. My campaign automatically creates a new voluntary middle class whose incentive is no longer just making more money in a pointless way, but rather the incentive is to increase the quality of life for Americans. For over a year now, I have done and continue to do my work by being here as your presidential candidate, breaking through in media in the very few ways we've been able to, dealing with all of the shadow banning, but making sure that the leadership of your government is not about the media, and it's about you. So now that you are aware of the plan for equality and democracy, the first one in modern history, it is your responsibility to move towards the leadership you know is best. America is one of the richest nations in the world, where we are is not caused by money or the lack of money. It is about the efficiency of how the money is used. Efficiency are the moral and humanitarian impulses guiding how the money is used. We have a goal of reaching 1 million votes on the Declaration of American Human Governance, ensuring that American humans are furthermore in charge of our government. That's within the next 10 days. This process that takes less than 3 minutes to do at bydavi.com/DAHG. Anything is possible. The New Era Party could start a movement to get their new presidential endorsee an interview with one of the Jimmy Joes or Jones in the next few days. And with their viewership, we could easily exceed our goal. It's just a matter of what you are willing to stand up for. Will you continue to be a spectator like all of our previous generations, just automatically losing because, oh, the try is too big? Or will you make a different decision because you know you set the example that you allow yourself to break free, that you set the example for other Americans to be able to understand their freedom, and you have the opportunity to make a different choice in 2024. So let us evolve for a super and superb America.
Thank you. And Susan, why do you believe you are the best candidate to be president?
Well, I'm already working for you because I've got a lawsuit pending with the Supreme Court to end this thing called registering to vote. So I'm already fighting for you, the U.S. people. And I've also spent the last 20 years in Switzerland. So I've seen a whole new way of living and a whole new, I had a very international experience there. I mean, in fact, my whole life has been quite international. I was born on an Air Force base. And I spent my early years in California. Then I went off to Guam for 2 years. While we were there, we went on vacation to Taiwan. So I've been to Hawaii. I've been to almost all the states. Plus, I used to go to the UN in Switzerland because there's a branch there. And I have lots of contacts with international people. And I think as a president, you're not just the president of the United States, you're also the ambassador of the United States to the rest of the world, and you make a lot of world decisions. So you have to know about the world and about other countries, and I think I know that too. But also, we haven't had a female president yet, and the men have gotten us to this point. We are on the brink of World War III, and I think it's time to end wars, start peace, start negotiating, because wars end in negotiation anyways, and that's what I've done my whole life, negotiated difficult discussions and situations with people. And I am a peace promoter, but I don't just want to promote it, I want to bring it. But on the other hand, we also need a female touch. We've gone, how many different military levels do we have? It's time for a woman's organization to support women and mothers and bring love and peace to all of us.
Thank you. And closing out, I just want to say thank you guys and gal for being a part of this organized event by George Micro. And I wish you guys all the luck. And I trust each and every one of you to fight the biggest problem that we are facing that you all seem to agree on, which is corruption within our government. So good luck to you all, and thank you very much.